I'm the type of player that just has to see everything a game has to offer. So if it's a game with multiple choices that determine different outcomes, you can bet I'll be watching footage of everything I didn't do on YouTube to see what could have been. Today I've decided to make one of those videos myself about Story of Seasons: A Wonderful Life, the 2023 remake of Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life from 2004. I've seen those infamous quote-unquote divorce cutscenes triggered by neglecting the farm where your spouse takes the child and leaves for good, but there's so much more I'm curious about. I'm here then to answer the dangerous question of what happens if you intentionally play A Wonderful Life as poorly as possible. Can you even still finish the game, and does anything change if there isn't one single soul in the village you can call a friend? This is my self-destructive quest to become the most hated man in Forgotten Valley. To successfully get each and every one of my neighbors to wish I had never moved here, there is one key item imperative to the task, and that is the failed dish. This kitchen nightmare is the result of cooking ingredients in a way that isn't tied to a recipe. For example, I made my unpalatable abomination simply by trying to turn this single mushroom into a salad. I can imagine that my character chopped it up, then cooked the mushroom chunks on high without any water until it burned and formed this unrecognizable, inedible black mess. This not-so-tasty treat churns stomachs far and wide across the land. Not one person will accept this dubious food as a gift. This makes it much easier for me, as people will like you less for showing them, and it's good for unlimited uses. Shoving this kitchen mistake in a villager's face over and over again despite their very vocal distaste for it will slowly but surely send that friendship meter into the toilet. I don't have an exact count as a result of this experiment because most everyone's starting friendship values vary, but I had to show one of the bachelors, Rock, for instance, this rock of a meal about 50 times to get that bar all the way down to the left. Rinse and repeat for everybody while getting a chuckle out of their unique reactions ranging from anger to disgust, until eventually you become the last person any of them ever invite to a party. I've gotta say that's pretty impressive considering you didn't even force them to play everybody 1-2 switch. Lackluster social gatherings aside, the failed dish is universally despised by everyone, with just one exception in the entire game. Van, the traveling merchant who is apparently so starved on his diet that any meal, regardless of quality or digestibility, looks appetizing to him. Showing Van your unsavory little creation doesn't offend the man, then. So in this sole instance, you'll have to offer another item that he actually dislikes, that being an item of little monetary value, like fertilizer, to get that bar low instead. Another challenging one was man's best friend, the dog you're made to adopt at the beginning of the game. Simply ignoring the pup won't do the trick because that meddling Takakura puts food in his bowl, so you'll have to annoy the good boy instead if you want to test his loyalty. Luckily, the dog training mechanics from Another Wonderful Life are present here, giving us the cruel option to overtrain, indicated by this black scribble icon. I made Lloyd here jump until his legs were jelly, but look, it still increased his ability. Maybe now the pitiable pooch will dream of the day he can jump high enough to clear the cliffside surrounding the farm and leave Forgotten Valley forever. But with the dog now detesting us, that's all for the Chapter 1 characters. Well, except for the ill-fated starting cow, which uses a different status system than the friendship meter. Your relationship with the barn animals is instead represented by hearts, just like the marriage candidate's affection, which is pretty funny. By default, Ms. Decaf here has 6 hearts that will never diminish by just leaving her be, even if you never brush, feed, milk, or take her out to pasture. Instead, you must milk her once, and in this case she produces C-grade milk, the worst quality possible, then incessantly try milking her immediately after without waiting half a day. This process takes much longer than dropping friendship levels, and the constant disapproving moos became slightly disturbing, so I muted the TV and averted my eyes while mashing the Y button. I'm just glad the developers didn't reuse the sound clip from the original though, that cry still haunts my dreams. Pushing past the cow abuse, I'd say mission accomplished, for now. This is what it looks like when you are invariably detested by every human, barn animal, and cryptid in the vicinity. Life must go on, however, and A Wonderful Life works a little differently than most farming simulation games out there. You see, the story is segmented by chapters with a time skip following each one. Raising a family is not just something you can do as an aside, it's a requirement to progress. To show what I mean, you must find a partner and get married by the end of Chapter 1, because Chapter 2 begins after your child is born and has grown into a toddler. Even if every available bachelor and bachelorette within 10 miles of the farm abhors the thought of being your significant other though, it isn't game over just yet. When I wasn't out making enemies, I was sleeping the days away. Even still, with 0 hearts and negative friendship points between all possible candidates, Cecilia or Rock will show up at your doorstep by default and ask you to marry them. You choose which of the two it is. That's because Cecilia recently turned down an arranged marriage with someone else and claims that you're always kind and a joy to be around, so she'd like to stay by your side forever instead. That's especially funny in my case, as besides the introductory heart event, the only time I've ever interacted with this woman was to shove garbage in her face 50 times, but sure, I'm nice. Rock, on the other hand, explains that he's been pestered by his parents to make something of his life, and so he'd like to ride on your coattails and live on the farm rent-free. Rejecting either of them at this point will cause the player character to leave the valley for good, prompting a credits roll. You'll have to settle to continue, so in my case I selected the one I admittedly had a crush on when I was just 10 years old, Cecilia. "You're welcome to come back and live with us anytime, Cece," says Matthew when given the news that his love interest is getting hitched. Vesta yells at him, but then says, "I'll have you know, if it does come to that, you and me'll be having some words." Little does she know that it's an inevitability, so I expect a thorough future scolding. After the ceremony neither of us should have agreed to, the game skips ahead a few years, and ta-da! Our daughter Celia, named in honor of the original name for Cecilia in Natsume's old translation, makes her debut. And you know what that means, a new victim for my shenanigans. Unfortunately though, the previous methods simply do not work. My virtual daughter still commented on how horrid this concoction looks, but no matter how many times I told her to eat it anyway, she didn't think any less of me. That's so sweet, albeit slightly concerning. Listen viewers, I want you to know that if your parents neglected to raise you, it's okay not to like them. You know, I've kept this rancid pile of charred mushroom bits since before you were born, but I'm your father, and so I'm going to insist you show respect and take this literal poison from me. Unlike with Van, offering stinky fertilizer doesn't even offend her enough to hate me, so I was at a loss for how to proceed. I tried throwing her into the garbage, then the river when she was a toddler, and running away when she asked to be held, among other things no parent should ever do. I even started telling her that she was naughty every single day, but that friendship bar would not budge. Right before I accepted the fact that a strained relationship with her might be impossible, however, a special cutscene played out where my child told me she discovered an old box on the beach. Instead of encouraging her imagination, I commanded that she throw the dirty thing away, and to my surprise, the meter nudged a little to the left. I was happy to have found a method that worked, but I honestly felt a little disheartened, because there were likely more special events that could damage our relationship, but if that was truly the only way to make her hate me, it'd take forever to trigger them all. This is where I consulted the internet for answers, and I'm glad I did because thanks to Reddit user Burst Orange's comment on a post with essentially the same idea as this video's topic, I discovered that the secret to estranging yourself from your child is to offer them something that they do really like, and then refuse to hand it over. Your offspring isn't the only new face in the valley following that first year. A nice family moves in at the beginning of Chapter 2, and they apparently didn't get the memo to avoid me at all costs, so I quickly ruined their appetites to defend my title of most obnoxious neighbor ever. You are also able to adopt a stray cat, which funnily enough hates you initially anyway, but I thought it'd be meaner to refuse it, so that's what I did in this playthrough. Not going outside ever also means that Vinny, the strange talking plant who lives in Takakura's home, is never introduced. But if you do meet him, note that in this remake he is the only NPC whose friendship deteriorates over time, so just pretend he doesn't exist and he'll dislike you soon enough too. And then, with my bad reputation intact, I began ignoring my family completely by doing nothing but sleeping all hours of every day. Old Takakura must be feeding the miserable starting cow to keep her alive, since I have never taken her out of the barn or put any fodder in the feeding bin. If this were the GameCube version, poor decaf would be dead by now. I have not grown anything, nor have I sold a single item. The year goes by like this, which triggers that ultimatum I mentioned at the start of this video. Cecilia will reluctantly express her concern about the farm's well-being, as Takakura approached her in private and revealed that I haven't been shipping much. I haven't shipped so much as a flower, Takakura, but thanks for making me look better, I guess. I was then given some very entertaining and cruel possible responses, with 4 total chances to apologize and promise to work harder. If you do pledge to step it up, Cecilia will be relieved, and you'll be allowed to play for another year. However, declaring that you hate it here and that the farm's prosperity isn't your problem will lead you to another bad ending, motivating the poor mother to take your child and leave you for new horizons. I had to then select all of the horrible dialogue choices except for the very last one, to take it back and try harder. Cecilia will mistakenly be relieved so long as you do work at it from here on out. But not in this lifetime, baby! To be honest, I almost broke down and halted this awful experiment when our child smiled toward the screen, but through sheer determination to finish what I started, I put my head down and got to work, sleeping deeper than ever before. I guess between chapter 2 and 3 my character built a little room for Celia, but when I'm in control it's back to bed for another year for you, with no seeds planted or interactions with the family. Got it? At this point, I actually had no idea what would happen next, as all of the footage I've ever watched online of the apparent divorce scenes was just the one at the end of chapter 2. I was surprised then to see that Cecilia does bring you back to the kitchen for another intervention, and this time with no mention of Takakura being worried. Cecilia asks about the state of the farm because she's noticed and she's distressed. There's even a couple of new, spicier dialogue options to choose from. Upon responding with these savage remarks, I have my character take it all back just like before. This time, I'll definitely be better, he says through bared teeth. Cecilia for some reason gives him a third chance, and miraculously convinces our idler to expand the house off screen again. Even little Celia offers words of encouragement, as if my mind could be changed at this point. Through this text alone, I can hear the spirit of the game developers pleading with me. You can turn everything around. It isn't too late. Please, play this game as intended. No, I'm a monster now. My heart has turned to stone, and so I must go back into human hibernation, like Nami always wondered about. Celia grows to become a teenager in chapter 4, but I don't know what she likes or how she perceives the world because this guy is absent from her life. Apparently, she desperately wants to know how to run the farm. But sorry, he's too busy sleeping his life away to teach her. Does he even know anything about farming anyway? Here's where things get even more interesting. At the end of the year, Cecilia will still confront you about how the farm's doing, but she won't act surprised this time when you choose the lesser response. If you confess that the farm hasn't seen a dime of profits, your lack of caring doesn't end in a game over like before. Celia is almost an adult, and so you both have to just keep pushing forward. Maybe Cecilia actually looked over at our fields and realized they've been empty since day one. Hey, I haven't nurtured a single plant since inheriting the farm, but you haven't grown anything either, dear. And so it looks like no seeds will be sown until the kid takes over. Well, that actually may come sooner than expected, as it turns out doing nothing but sleeping is actually quite bad for you. This is the final year to waste until our protagonist, who's actually the antagonist, kicks the bucket. The Twilight chapter intervention isn't terribly interesting. The faux farmer just calls his wife wrinkly, but then a few days later, the good doctor informs his family that he's met his maker. Surprisingly, they seem upset, as do a good number of the townsfolk, even though their friendship levels are as low as can be. I'm not sure if it's out of politeness or what, but everyone still has nice things to say about the village idiots. As far as I can tell, there aren't any special lines in the remake when your friendship is this low either. Everyone treats you just like they do at their starting levels. That being the case, all it means when the bar is this low is that it'll take a lot longer to become friends with them. I suppose the failed dish only has its use in normal gameplay then if your affection with another marriage candidate is too high and you don't want to mislead them, or accidentally lock yourself into engagement. This only happens if you choose the positive response during their 9-heart event, but still. Nevertheless, Celia decides to take over the farm, probably because she had a prime example of what not to do, since neither of her parents did any kind of work on it. So congratulations! You've unlocked the true ending, plus a secret 7th chapter, where everyone can hate you from beyond the grave for all of eternity. Now that my curiosity is sated after unveiling what happens if you go out of your way to annoy the villagers and do the absolute bare minimum to finish the game, I've gotta say I'm left feeling a little depressed. I'm glad I have a better understanding of how the game works now, but I honestly don't think I can say it was worth it. I've made my character the most hated man in Forgotten Valley, and I'm pretty sure he even hates himself. One of the last things I did in experimenting was consuming a few of the infamous failed dishes to get his energy low, then completely depriving him of food and sleep. Dr. Baddock won't make any special comments unless you tell him you're about to pass out, but looking in the mirror does result in some amusing remarks. You are actually able to black out by spending enough stamina points, but that doesn't do much besides waste several hours, even if you continuously work yourself to collapse. I do wonder if the player character canonically faints like this regularly, which would help explain the very short lifespan. They do fall unconscious upon first visiting the doctor in his home, so the theory isn't too far-fetched. Regardless of our villain's health, this unconventional playthrough was just sad. I'm reminded of my actions in Undertale, and how Sans once called me sick for acting out in violence just to see what he'd say. I also remember Moon Remix RPG Adventure and its lesson about playing God as the hero in a world of innocent NPCs. My normal A Wonderful Life save file is still safe on a separate account, which is in many ways the exact opposite of this one, where I've maxed out everyone's friendship levels, and I'm really taking my time enjoying the little things life in Forgotten Valley has to offer. You know, instead of becoming a public menace and making a beeline to the finish line for the sake of seeing what's programmed to happen. 2 alternate virtual universes now exist because of my actions as a player. One is a lovely, sweet dream where Nami is married happily to my avatar and he's the best dad/farmer a guy could be. While the other is a pit of despair where Cecilia settled on a layabout and their child is essentially fatherless. Video games are a toy box for us to deconstruct and enjoy in all different types of ways. But this is madness. I think, for the happiness of all who inhabit this intangible space, especially Celia and her mother, I must permanently delete these save files and pretend none of this ever happened. This video then is the only record of a world wiped clean in an effort to make the tainted pure once again. Hopefully the next time I talk about A Wonderful Life, it will truly be a wonderful topic. But as the creator of Dark Aspects, I cannot make that promise. Until then, I'm putting my controller down, and I think I'll go for a nature walk to reflect on all that's transpired here. Thanks for watching, I'll see you whenever I get back.